Hey, rookies, and welcome back to the Rookie Farmer Podcast. You know it, it is the home of the dreamers, the schemers, and the hustlers here in the world of small scale agriculture. If you are new here, it's your first episode. I'm your host. My name is Alec Smith. I am also the grower here at Crop Culture Farm in New Bern, Georgia. All right, folks, we have another great episode for you this week. We sit down with Brian Strickland. He is the market director for the Athens Farmers Market, our farmers market. Brian and I see each other every Saturday. We talk shop, we talk about farming. He has several years of growing experience working for himself as well as on some other farms. And we get into that in this episode, as well as talking about sort of the principles, the ethos, the ideas behind what makes a great farmer's market, what makes one successful, and what are some good tips and tricks that we can do as growers to be better situated to be successful at a farmer's market. But that and so much more in this episode of the Rookie Farmer Podcast with the market director of the Athens Farmers Market, Brian Strickland. All right, Brian, thank you so much for sitting down with me. It was a little unique because normally I would have said I just saw you, but you had the amazing opportunity to take a week off and go camping with your family. But for the folks listening at home, give us a little bit of an introduction to kind of who you are, what your role is at the Athens Farmers Market, and kind of give us the backstory of sort of like what brought you to this point today.
So my name is Brian Strickland. I'm the director for the Athens Farmers Market in Athens, Georgia. It's about an hour and a half away from Atlanta. I've been in this role for, I'd say, coming up on 2 years in October. So not new, but haven't been in there for a long time. Before I started in this role, I worked on a farm called Diamond Hill Farm, which is here in Athens, and worked on the flower team there and managed the wholesale flower program there, and sold flowers to florists and events in Atlanta and here in Athens. And before that, I lived in Atlanta with my family. I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and my wife and I, we lived in Atlanta and was working in the music industry, managing music festivals and concert tours and corporate events, and also working at the farmers market on the side for Diamond Hill in Atlanta at the Freedom Farmers Market, where they do Saturday Farmers Market alongside Athens Farmers Market. So got into working with Diamond Hill because when COVID happened, all of my work in the music industry shut down and disappeared for the year. And I was going stir crazy at the house, being someone who was typically on the road or typically outside doing something, building a music festival site or running around putting out fires somewhere. So we had just started, I guess, going to Peachtree Road Farmers Market, which is another big farmers market in Atlanta. And there's a farm there called Rogers Greens and Roots. And they were an organic vegetable farm in Douglasville, Georgia. And they put up a job posting on Good Food Jobs looking for someone to work at the farmers market on Saturdays. And then also another one for help on the actual farm a couple days a week. And I thought it would be a good opportunity to get out of the house, make some cash, and learn something new, and kind of deep dove into the local food scene. And I was also diagnosed with Crohn's disease when I was 15. I'm 34 now. And when I started working on this organic farm, I saw my health change completely from eating local food, not really eating a lot of processed food, not being stressed out on the road. But honestly, I can say from like working in soil that was treated properly and wasn't filled with a bunch of chemicals and was taken care of the right way, and kind of fell in love with farming and soil biology, and kind of went down a deep dive, learning about compost and what good soil is, and got back into the music industry when it came back. Kind of felt the stress and being on the road again, start messing with my health, and kind of realized what the missing link was, and it was not working with soil and like working on a farm, and instead of being stressed out on the road. So me and my wife decided we needed to find a way out of music industry, and we actually started growing flowers at our house in Atlanta, and basically tore up every inch of grass that we had, and ended up having 12 25-foot beds in our backyard, and grew flowers to sell at a farmer's market in Virginia Highlands in Atlanta, and also to events, just because that's where my background was events. So I fell in love with flowers growing there, and then that kind of led to me working with Diamond Hill Farm at the farmers market because they grew a lot of flowers, and then ended up here in Athens, and now I'm the director for the Athens Farmers Market, and get to not just help one farm grow within a community, but get to help lots of farms grow and lots of small businesses grow within a community.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you had said about, like, you went back to working in the music industry and then realized, like, "Oh, there's something's off here, like, there's an imbalance, and I need to kind of go back to the world that I had previously been in." Because I had the same thing. So when I started at Crystal Organic, I was kind of doing part-time that, and then I was doing my kinda had, like, a contracting, finished carpentry and painting business that I was running, and that was gonna be, like, my career. That was gonna be, like, my ticket to a decent life, and then the farm thing was like, maybe one day, and I'll just kinda do this on the side and maybe learn some stuff. And pretty quickly, it got to the point where it's like, I'm dreading the days that I have to go back to the other job. And, and we had this agreement, Nicholas and I, where it was like, if I don't have work that day, if I didn't pick up a job, whatever, with another contractor, then it's like I'd call him and say, like, hey, can I come work at the farm? And he would let me
Yeah,
pick up an extra day. And I found myself like eager on those days where it's like I almost stopped trying to really like fill up my calendar and really book a lot of jobs because it was like, I want to get back. I want to be at the farm. And then ultimately through a series of events, it just got to the point where it was like, no, I just need to do this. Like, I just need to go all in and just focus on that. I'd say one thing is probably different. And I don't know, maybe you felt this way before you kind of made the transitions you did, but it was kind of always like when I decided to go all in on it, it was always with the intent, like from the moment that I got to Crystal Organic. I can remember in my interview telling them, like, I'm going to do this one day and I'm just here long enough to learn how to do it. When you guys started the kind of the little urban farm, a little urban flower farm at your house, were you thinking that you might like this would be what you're going to do? You're going to become a flower farmer and you're just going to go on and on that? Or was it more of just like something to do on the side, something for fun?
I know it's definitely 100% go all in,
Yeah.
but with the space that we had, because we knew we weren't in a position to get out of one our lease that we were in Atlanta, but also to buy any sort of property at the time that would be big enough for us to run a flower farm that would be profitable to support a family. Maybe it would be different if I was single and was doing it on the side and was able to like find somewhere to have a farm at a small scale, but we were definitely all in. I remember one day when we planted some stuff in the fall to overwinter a bunch of flowers like snapdragons and ranunculus and anemones. It started snowing or sleeting outside. I just remember like peeking through the blinds for hours and like turning around. It stopped snowing. Okay, we're good. And I had road cover over everything, but didn't want it to get too thick. And it just remember my first like feeling of this is farming, no matter how like big or small it is.
Yeah.
Like if you're going after it, the weather is going to affect you, but you can only do so much. And like all in, like our basement slash crawl space is where we had two of those like kitchen utility shelves that had grow lights, and that's
Mhm.
where we grew our trays, and that's where we did like flower bunching, and we turned our entire crawl space basically into like our grow room slash processing room, and we're doing anything we can to try to make some money to like make us believe that we could do this on bigger scale, and it just kind of grew into what I was doing with Diamond Hill.
And why did you decide to make that transition? Was it just sort of a like you realized, hey, maybe I need to learn some more, or it was just money thing, or like what was the reason to jump on with them as opposed to just continuing to double down and keep doing more?
Well, it came at a time where we were getting close to our lease being up in Atlanta. He'd offered me a full-time position for the next season, and basically said, "You tell me when you can start if you want to take this job, and we'll be flexible together." And I had at this point been working with him for at least a year and a half at the market, so like I um what kind of person he was, like knew what he was
Mhm.
about, knew his knowledge, knew how hard of a worker he was, and just kind of gravitated towards being able to like have really genuine conversation about not just farming but like other things in life, and knew that the scale that he was at was where you could be profitable and also like employ people and have a successful business, not just for yourself but for other people within the community. So it just felt like a leap of faith, and we actually moved into a rental house in Athens that we never saw before we moved into it. That two of the farmers that worked at Diamond Hill at the time were leaving their lease early to move to Washington State. So it was just like little things fell into place where it was felt kind of serendipitous that if we didn't take the leap of faith, that we would have been disappointed that we didn't just see where it could go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool, and it sounds I haven't really got a chance to know Carter super well. Carter, obviously, for people listening at home, Carter is the guy who started and owns Diamond Hill, but the little bit that I've got to interact with him and just from what I've heard about him, yeah, I mean, it's just like, he's made a reputation for himself, I mean, not just in, like, the business that he's built, but just as a person. Yeah, got a call from another market saying like, "Hey, Carter gave me your name and said you might be looking to like expand and maybe do another market." And it was like, man, like I've talked to this guy like 2 times and he
Yeah.
and he barely knows anything about me and he's already throwing my name out and like trying to help us, and it's at a market that he is going to. So
Also at making money at, yeah.
yeah, 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 and so it's not just like, "Oh, yeah, there's this young guy, he's just starting, and, like, sure, if you need whatever." No, it's like, I would be coming in and, quote, unquote, "competing" against him, and so, yeah, I look forward to hopefully getting to get to know Carter a little bit better, but, yeah, his reputation really precedes him.
Yeah, so just from working with them, knowing how we work together, it felt like a great opportunity to come to Athens and continue farming and kind of take that step back from the music industry to see how a really deep dive I could get into like the local food scene and composting and soil biology and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed it and ended up doing that for, I guess, 10 months until I got offered the position with the Athens Farmers Market. And it was a tough decision to leave because working there was great. And I was learning a ton, learning at the scale that I thought I wanted to be at one day. But the opportunity to manage the farmers market, like I said, I was given the opportunity to help more than one farm grow within the community, provide local food for people in the community. And with the health changes that I saw with my family and my body from Crohn's disease, that felt like a more important opportunity than continuing to learn more about farming at the time.
Yeah. It's interesting because, yeah, I think so many of us come into this space and we think like, I mean, naturally, it's like, you're coming into agriculture, you're coming into farming, therefore, like, you will be a farmer. And realizing there's so many people, interviewed Abigail a couple weeks ago with Wholesome Wave and kind of similar story. She started farming and then turned into a different position. I've talked to other people who started out, maybe doing veg and then moved this. And it's like, and I think we all kind of come into it thinking we're going to be like full time market gardeners, do run our own thing one day, and pretty quickly you begin to realize like there's so many other roles that are at play, so many other pieces that are constantly moving that are intrinsic to creating the opportunity for those of us who have committed ourselves to farming part-time, full-time, whatever, running an actual farm business, that none of our jobs, quote unquote, would be possible without those support people, without those, I call them like industry professionals, whether it's like an
Sure.
agronomist or whatever. And, and I mean, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't for you hitting me up, sending me an Instagram DM
Yeah.
saying like, "Hey man, we got this winter market and we, looking at another farmer, been listening to your podcast, so on and so forth." And so yeah, I just find it really interesting how we all kind of come in thinking we're going to be doing one thing and then realize like there's this whole world of like local food, small scale agriculture that needs support people and people in all these adjacent industries that are, we're all sort of, even though the farmer sort of gets all the hype and gets all the attention, in a lot of ways, I'd say rightly so, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But none of us would be able to be doing if it wasn't for market managers, if it wasn't for delivery drivers, if it wasn't for chefs, and then obviously our customers. So, yeah, so thank you just upfront, thank you for all of the work that you've done both for us as a farm, but then also just for the community and kind of really championing the local food movement.
Yeah, man. I think a lot of it goes like when you start getting into local food and local agriculture, the first things that you hit are like the JM books and the
Mhm.
Curtis Stone books, and they're really cool, like
The one I have on
flashy.
my desk right now.
Yeah, the Elliot
Yeah.
Coleman books. And I think once you can't see where the holes are in your community with the local agriculture until you actually are growing food or working with a farm to see kind of like what the walls they're hitting in different communities, because every community has different holes that are missing, but I don't think you can actually see where the holes are until you're on the ground growing food, seeing what's actually going on and seeing how where things actually aren't getting to. But yeah, I think everyone starts out wanting to grow food and loves to grow food. And once you do that, even when you do move on to another position or another part of the industry, it's pretty tough to lose the love to grow local food and like enjoy it, because the difference is night and day from anything else you're going to eat at the grocery store or anything else around.
Yeah, absolutely. And so before we kind of dive too much into the dynamics of the market, and what folks should be thinking about, can you give us a little backstory on the history of the Athens market? I know listeners are probably sick and tired of me talking about it. Obviously, it's my context, it's our context here, but even though we sort of reference it, talk about how it's been for our business at the market. Just yeah, kind of give us a little bit of the history of the Athens Farmers Market as a whole.
So the Athens Farmers Market um, in Athens, Georgia, has been around for 18 years. It started out with a couple farmers that had an idea about providing local, organically grown, naturally grown food to the community of Athens. I think it started out with three farms, maybe three or four farms. And they started in this little roundabout at the bottom of the hill at the park that we're at still currently. And they said, like 2 to 3,000 people showed up, and their food was gone within 30 minutes. And
Wow.
everyone was like, okay, so the demand is here, but we got to figure out what's going on, because we can't keep going like this every week, because then people are going to stop coming. And so it started growing from there. They moved from that little roundabout spot to the basketball court. And I'm not sure how long ago the market actually moved to where it is now, but now we are at underneath a tennis court pavilion, where we have vendors inside the tennis court pavilion and also outside in front. Anywhere from meat, egg, bread vendors. We have, let's see, six, eight farms now inside vegetable produce farms. We've got one dedicated flower farm. We've got four different meat farms, anything from duck meat to chicken meat, pork meat, beef. And then we typically have between 50 to 54 vendors every Saturday. Um, that includes like prepared food vendors and other like arts and craft vendors. So it's grown tremendously over the years. We usually see between, I'd say, 3 to 4,000 people a Saturday that come to the farmers market, depending on what's going on in town. It's tough to be in a college town some weekends and compete with the dogs playing on Saturdays, but
Yeah.
there's a dedicated community in Athens that's always looking for local food, and is genuinely worried about and values supporting local businesses along with the local food community. It's always great at the Athens Farmers Market. There's always a good vibe. Everyone's always really kind. It's a very diverse crowd, and it's a pretty genuine community on a weekly basis.
Yeah, when right after you reached out and kind of started, looking, really thinking it over about if we were going to join. Like I knew the Athens market was like a popular market. It's a bigger market, but I don't and really don't think it's been until recently you have conversations with people. Even I mean, mostly I don't think I've quite realized how big the impact and how big of a deal it is to be a part of the Athens market has been since start of the podcast. Just whether talking to Alice Varon, the former director of Certified Naturally Grown, or
Hmm.
it's Abigail who used to run the market and now is moved on to Wholesome Wave, or just other people realizing that like the Athens Farmers Market is a big deal.
Yeah.
That it's like it has an insanely good reputation, especially for only being around for 18 years. Yeah, like looking at the website and it's like, yeah, it started in 2008. I'm like, that's not 18 years ago, and you're like, oh my god, no, that is 18 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother can of worms of just feeling like 18 years ago is 2008. But what do you think it is about the market that has given it the such a great reputation from like people that are completely outside of our local community, outside of our local food movement, like people like Alice at CNG, who I mean, she's all the way up in New York, and but she was like immediately like, oh yes, like what you guys are doing down there is a big deal.
Um, Anytime my family travels, we always try to find a farmer's market wherever we're landing. Whether we were
Hmm.
driving out west and stop at farmers markets to kind of stock up back on food, or like going to Brevard, North Carolina, or Asheville, North
Yeah.
Carolina. We've been to a lot of farmers markets across the country, and we can honestly say that we've never seen as many naturally grown farms or organic farms at one farmers market, with also the community around it of just everything is locally made. The food is all as local as possible. And I think having there's so much attention on local agriculture around Athens from the farmer standpoint and the agriculture standpoint that the demand is there. So as long as we keep having dedicated farmers coming from around the Athens area, that's what makes Athens Farmers Market so special, is because everyone is either certified naturally grown or organic when it comes to produce. And all of our farms are either regenerative or they're certified naturally grown or they're organic. So we really value giving the people of the community the choice to eat healthy, eat organic, and know where their food's coming from, because we know it really makes a difference.
And not all farmers markets obviously are kind of creating that threshold of you must be, and I even hate to belittle it because it feels like it is to say you have to be at least certified naturally grown because there's really no difference from what I'm doing versus someone who's USDA. Or again,
Yeah.
I have less red tape, I have less expense that I have to do. But having that threshold of like you must be at least certified naturally grown, if not USDA organic. So has the farmers market always been like having this benchmark of being at least certified naturally grown or USD organic, or was that a choice that was made further on down the line that like we're going to commit to this moving forward?
As far as I know from the beginning, the farms that started the movement of the Athens Farmers Market all valued certified naturally grown. I mean, it wasn't certified naturally grown back then, it was just growing naturally,
Yeah.
like Elliott Coleman style and organically grown. And they valued that and knew that there was a community in Athens that valued it, and kind of started off of those bases and then just grew from there and kind of spread the knowledge. Organic farming in Georgia goes back pretty far. I mean, like Crystal Organics, they're one of the oldest organic farms in the state of Georgia. Woodland Gardens in Athens is one of the oldest organic farms in Georgia. So the value for organic and naturally grown produce, I think, in at least in the northeast corner of Georgia, has been around for a while and has just continued to grow.
And are any of those initial growers when the market first started, are any of those guys still, I think so, but are any of those guys still a part of the market now?
Yeah, Cedar Grove was one of the farms that helped start it. I think they're the only ones that have been there the whole time. I know Diamond Hill has been there for 12 years. And I'm not sure how long Sundance has been there, but they've been there for a long time. And Hickory Hill's been there for at least 10 years.
Yeah.
So a lot of the farms that are at the market have been there for at least a decade. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
no pressure. I have an
that's a
uphill
lot.
battle.
That's a lot of local food, man.
It's really wild. Yeah, I think Ed at Sundance has been there. Yeah, I want to say the number that I heard was like 13 to 15 years, like
Yeah.
pretty long time. No, it's been really wild because I was at a market last year doing my thing, a much smaller market. Frankly, a market that had been around like a decade in some form
Hmm.
or fashion, but it just kind of always felt sort of like ragtag, like we're just trying to figure it out each, season as we go or whatever. And so that was sort of my only farmers market experience. And then like even the application process and the requirements of, being CNG and all that sort of stuff, it was like, oh, like no, this is a big step up from a small town, kind of little tucked away farmers market that's more of like an artisan market that also happens to have farms. And I think, and I'm not throwing shade at that particular market. I think that's most smaller markets. It's just the reality of there's a lot more people that want to sell, bedazzled keychains than there are that actually want to commit to growing food. But with that, so obviously, like at the market in particular, you have these bigger farms, relatively bigger farms who have been doing this for, at least a decade, 12 years, you know, going on 20 years. Is there room? And I'm not just talking Athens, it could be any, really well established farmers market. Like, is there room for new blood? Is there room for new farms in the game to kind of come in and sort of establish themselves and just kind of offer an even larger amount of things to sell to the customers there?
I think there's definitely room. It definitely comes with education within the community. Every community is different. There's a different mindset in communities that are super rural, and there's different communities that are kind of like Athens is. I mean, it's an hour and a half from Atlanta, and I would say the mindset and the way of life in Athens is completely different than it is in Atlanta.
Mm,
Even though it's a decently sized town, I think that there's just under 200,000 people here, and but the counties around it all come into Athens, so it feels a lot bigger sometimes. And we have people come from different counties to come shop every weekend. So if people are coming from outside of Athens to come to the farmers market, that means there's people looking for local agriculture and local food in different communities that aren't like Athens and smaller towns. Like we have a friend, a husband and wife who moved from Atlanta. They were basically our neighbors in Smyrna, right outside of Atlanta. And when we moved to Danielsville, about 8 months later, they moved to Danielsville on a piece of property and started a farm called Wild Acres. And this will be their second season, and they sell at the Marigold Market. So, I mean, there's always smaller markets to start at, and it helps you build a following. It helps you learn what to bring to market, what not to bring to market, how to set up a market booth, how to look professional, how to stand there and not look like you're bored, even though you haven't had a customer come buy any carrots until 10 o'clock because you only have four bunches.
yep.
It gives you kind of that confidence to be there and know that it's a long game and it's not going to happen overnight. But the farms that have been there for 10 plus years have a following for a reason because they bring consistency, they bring quality, and they're also able to have genuine conversation with people that are looking for genuine answers about local food and how to use it, how to grow it, what is going to be in season, what's not going to be in season. So I think there's always room for new blood. You just have to kind of find your way into a smaller market, learn from your mistakes, learn from your successes, learn from other people before you can move into a bigger market like Athens is.
Yeah, and I still kind of wonder to this day what I don't know if it's just my smooth talking ability on the podcast, but what sort of sparked your desire to reach out to me? Because it was, and I've said this a lot on here too, that it was like, I went from obviously felt very insecure, like I don't really know what I'm doing. Obviously, I had a lot of help in my corner Nicholas and Jenny at Crystal, and just, several years of like consuming as much farm information as I can. And we had done a couple little pop-ups the year before, but kind of went into last year feeling like the new kid on the block. And then by the end of the season, it really sort of felt like that we were like the premier grower. Maybe we didn't have as much stuff as everybody every single week, but most weeks we had the largest amount of produce. I would confidently say we were probably generating the most sales, a lot of variety, so on and so forth. And, I was sort of ready to stick it out and just say like, all right, the market's not quite doing as good as I was hoping it would be. It's been a good sort of incubator for me. Maybe we'll pick another smaller market and do sort of two of those and divide and conquer or whatever. But I never really envisioned that I would go like year one, small town market, year two, boom, we're at the Athens Farmers Market. And it definitely still to this day feels like little fish in a big pond. It's a little better now that we're like 6 months in, but you've already alluded to it, but you would probably confidently say, if you're like if it's your first season growing, probably would be better to find sort of like an ancillary market in a suburban area, not like don't go to the capital of your state and try to get in at the big established like premier farmers market, right?
Yeah, I mean, the first farmers market that we sold flowers at was a Thursday farmers market with 12 vendors.
Mm,
And we probably brought, I don't know, 30 to 50 bunches of flowers and maybe sold out one or two times, like around flower holidays for the whole season. So we learned the hard way. We would harvest that morning, bunch that morning.
wow.
I would pack everything up. The kids would go to sleep for a nap. Or we only had one kid at the time, our son Wyatt, and he would go down for a nap. I would pack the car up with all the flowers and the market stuff, go to the market, and then Miranda, my wife, and Wyatt would come meet me at the market while it was going on. And so we started there, but also had the knowledge and experience of working at a larger market like Peachtree Road with Rogers Greens and Roots and at Freedom Farmers Market with Diamond Hill. And I think what made me reach out to you was listening to the podcast and kind of having that same connection of like coming from a different industry, learning from a farm that was at scale, and also knowing the quality and consistency that Crystal Organics produces. I mean, they're a machine in the state of Georgia, and especially in like the Atlanta area, people that know local food and know local agriculture, know Crystal Organics. They helped start one of the best farmers markets in Atlanta. I used to do deliveries for Rogers Greens and Roots to Fresh Harvest because they sold a lot of produce to Fresh Harvest, which is a really cool organization in Atlanta that supports all the local farms around. And they're basically like an online grocery CSA for Atlanta that supports farms in Athens, Crystal Organics, farms in South Georgia, farms within the region. But they really focus on stuff in Georgia. And I knew about Crystal Organics from there, so knew like the quality there, knew from your podcast kind of like what your switch in background was. And we were honestly looking for farms that valued the caring about the soil and like caring about what you're growing and putting effort into being certified naturally grown. And you weren't certified naturally grown when I reached out to you,
No,
but
I
I'm,
wasn't I
but
wasn't C&G until after I had submitted my application, and you were like, "Yeah, and just make sure that you're certified naturally grown." And I'm like, "Oh, and this is December and the market starts in January." So that
yeah.
was yeah, kudos to them for helping me fast track that process and get it done.
Yeah, and I think I knew that the process could happen because we have a beekeeper who's one of two certified naturally grown apiaries in the state of Georgia, and we got his C&G certification done within like a month, I think, like a couple weeks, probably more like a month. But I knew it could be a quicker process because Georgia has so many certified naturally grown farms.
Mhm.
And with the structure of peer reviewing or certified naturally grown, the process just can go faster. And I feel like it's more genuine because it is a peer reviewed and it is people that value the same values of like healthy soil, healthy food, healthy community, are coming to see that you value the same things. And I think C&G is a great foot in the door for somebody that maybe wants to be organic one day, or just that wants to showcase how they value local food and how they value growing on their farm to support a community.
Yeah. Yeah. 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. That was the time
Yeah.
frame from that email that you sent me saying like, yeah, and just we got to do your certification to, yeah, like actually emailing you again and saying like, got it. Yeah. It was 3.5 weeks. And yeah, I wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't for the fact that, yeah, I had a list of like, there was 3 or 4 farmers that I personally knew, not even to mention all of the other people that I could reach out to, kind of
Hmm.
cold that, I could have called at a moment and had him come over and do my inspection and got it knocked out. And so I was really able to do that. But you brought up a really interesting point about kind of, the reputation of working at Crystal being a big reason why you could sort of trust, what we were going to deliver before we ever did. And I think, that's another thing that I try to preach consistently on here is that, that's the importance. And I think you especially also understand this. Like, that's the important reason why it's so good to go get on a crew, go get on a farm crew at an established farm that has a really good reputation, that is doing things right, not just because it's a paycheck, and not even just because it's experience, but because like you are sort of attaching yourself to that. And then so, you in a lot of ways, it's I would say in the small ag space, it would be the equivalent of saying like, I went to this Ivy League college, before I became, it's like I went to Harvard Law and now I just passed the bar and now I'm ready to join a firm. And it was, and that's what it almost feels like is it's like working for a farm like Diamond Hill or working with Ashley at Roger Greens and Roots or working with Nicholas at Crystal Organic or, Love is Love or we could go on and on and on. And that's just within like an hour of us. Um,
Hmm.
you know, it's like when you do that, there is a reputation that comes with that of knowing like, all right, this person has been taught the right things. This person knows what they're doing. And even still to this day, I can have a conversation with Nicholas or a text message and be like, ask him a question and he can help reiterate things like, like we were talking about it the other day of like, just remember, man, like you were selling like you were selling the
Hmm.
farm, like you are there and you're the farmer. So you can say like, I grew this, I picked this. You can tell them everything about it. And people want that relationship with their food. It's not just, and obviously you farms grow to a certain size where it's like, you just physically can't be at every farmer's market every single time, and you have to begin to do that and sort of outsource the labor. But especially for a small new farm, like it's so important that it's like, I'm the one who grew it. I'm the one who knows what it took and what the quality is going to be like. And so, and just having that reassurance hammered in every single time we have a conversation is one of those things that outside of experience, outside of, the clout or whatever, it's like I have a veteran farmer who's been doing this since the year I was born, who can
Yeah.
who can sort of take the things that have given him a reputation and distill it down and sort of hand it to me. And so, yeah, I've said it 1,000 times and I'll say it 1,000 more times. Like, get a job at a well-established, reputable farm, and that will do far more for you in this space than having the prettiest bunch of carrots ever will.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be full time at that farm. It can be part time, and you pick up on things, and not just the benefit of the knowledge and the experience that you gain, but the money that you will save if you go work part time on a farm before you invest and go all in on your own
Yeah.
farm
Yeah.
is night. I mean, it's tremendous. You will save thousands and thousands of dollars if you go work part time on a established local, like, sustainable farm that cares about what they're doing, cares about how they're growing food, just from like down to the tools that you won't buy because Johnny's has
Mhm.
a sale, or the seed that you won't buy because you can get a good deal on it. You learn what grows in your climate. You learn what grows for your community. You learn the easier way to weed instead of being on your hands and knees the whole time and being able to use a stirrup hoe the right way, or being able to use flat hoe and really like paint through aisles and paint through rows of spinach instead of tearing up every fifth plant of spinach in a row.
Hmm.
Like you learn things that you can't learn at the same speed if you're doing it by yourself. One, because your brain is having to think about 1,000 things instead of three things in one day. Being a part of a crew on a farm instead of trying to run your own business and run a farm, because when you're running a farm, you're not just farming, you're also running the business side.
Hmm.
So to learn the fundamental part of what being a farmer is before you have to learn the business side of things will save you a ton of money, but also help you be a better farmer and a better business person.
Yeah, and it could be like, "Hey, here's my tax guy. He really understands, what to do for farm businesses. We've used him for a long time. Hey, I've got to order stuff from farm supply company. It's coming on a pallet. If you want anything, it'd really help me out because it'll lower my, shipping costs, so
Hmm.
on and so forth." There's so much that you can gain from doing that, and even pricing. I mean,
Yeah.
you and I have
Seeing
had a
sample wholesale sheets. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, that can make you a lot of money, save you a lot of time, and give you the confidence that you can actually send something to a chef that they're not going to look at it and just throw it away, or look
yeah,
at it and just close the email. They're going to look at it and say, okay, this is a professional fresh sheet with prices, with the right names for different produce that
uh-huh,
the way that chefs know produce. Like sometimes the language and the dialogue from a farmer about certain types of produce is different than what a chef will call something. So knowing like what to name stuff on a fresh sheet, how to price it out, how to make it look enticing, how to, if you have too much of one thing or not enough of one thing, to like price it accordingly so that you can get it out the door, or kind of space it out so all of your clients and all of your chefs can get a little bit of what you might have. Like stuff like that is another way that you can just save so much time and experience and doing something the wrong way. If you're working with someone experienced like Nicholas or like Carter or like Ashley or like any of the other really great farms in the Northeast Georgia area.
yeah. Or they can help you know what is the reasonable retail price for something.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that's been the biggest. Yeah, wholesale pricing is a whole nother can of worms. I'm hoping to get a chef on here soon, and we can kind of talk about all that from that side. But if you recall, maybe a month ago, a funny little interaction that I had where I was like way undercutting everybody at the market, snap peas, and then it was like, and I remember I went and told Nicholas about it like a couple days later, and he was like, "Oh yeah, man, like you're totally were." And I was like, "Oh, I should have." And that was the moment. It's like I should have asked him first. So now it's like if I'm ever like I don't know what to charge for this, like always consult Nicholas, and he'll tell
Yeah.
you and do that. So then you can kind of save a little face, which obviously, like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing half the time anyways. These guys have been doing it way longer. And it's like, and if they have the decency to tell me like, hey man, like you're really undercutting it. One, it's like I'm undercutting them, but also two, it's like I'm selling myself short. And it's like if I can make $6 a pint on something that I'm charging for four, it's like I'm losing out on potential revenue that will help me be continue to establish a business and be sustainable in the future. And so there's the benefits of working on a reputable farm is endless.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe one day I'll write a book like about working on another farm and how important that is. So I probably have more experience with that than I actually have with farming. But uh
There's I forget what the book's called, but Ellen Polishek,
mhm.
she's a really great farmer. I think she's retired now, but she's from the Virginia area, and she worked and ran a big organic farm. And she wrote a book called How to Start a Farm. And one of the chapters is just about working on another farm to get the experience, but also to not spend your own dime on having to learn how to do one of the hardest jobs in the world. And it's a great book for anybody that's starting out to be a farmer. Pretty sure it's called How to Start a Farm, and it's not a book that teaches you how to grow things. It's a book that teaches you how to like work through the mindset and the process of like becoming a farmer, looking for land, like coming up with the way that you want to actually run a farm. And it was something that I read and really enjoyed when I was getting into farming and kind of figuring out which way I wanted to go.
So speaking of getting into the mindset of farming. How do you feel that being a grower yourself previously, both, doing it on your own and then working for other farms, how do you think that has differentiated or set you apart or sort of prepared you for your role now, like directing and leading sort of the farmers market?
I think in the music industry, I've always had my own business as like a subcontractor, getting contracted out for stuff. So I've already had that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, always looking for something new to kind of like create and kind of put out into the world. And I think working on my own kind of gave me the idea of how to micromanage myself and kind of put everything down on paper and know what needs to be done in what order, and it's never going to get done in that order, but at least you have something out of your mind to say, hey, this is what I need to do. And having to juggle all those things helps a ton in the position that I'm in now because, like I said, I'm not just helping one farm, we have, I think, close to 75 businesses that rotate in and out of the farmers market with 30 to 40 of those being regular market vendors on Saturdays or on Wednesdays, and working with a team at Diamond Hill in the local food movement and in Athens kind of gave me the team camaraderie to work within Athens community and know who I can ask for different questions about like, hey, what's coming in season now? Even though I'm not growing currently on a farm, I have all the connections in the community to kind of know where everything is going, what's in season, what's about to be out of season. And I think working by myself, for myself, and then also working on a team at a larger scale farm has given me the mindset to kind of know where a small scale farmer is coming from, but also like the work and effort that it takes to manage a team and produce a large amount of local food from a bigger scale farm. So like I can relate to Hickory Hill and I can relate to Diamond Hill who have close to 20 employees and they go to multiple markets a weekend. But I can also relate to Ed and you and John Carter from Harvest Moon because y'all are doing it on your own. Maybe have one person that helps every now and then, but I know what it takes to like produce that amount of food and to really support a community on both scales. And I think that's really helped a lot to value where people are coming from within the vendor community for the farmers market.
Because, if you know the work that gets put into, to get a bunch of carrots onto a table, to sell them to a customer, like if you fully understand what that process looks like, um, like you have the ability, one, to help celebrate that, and I'm
Hmm.
not saying like celebrate us, but just celebrate like the miracle that is like there's a bunch of carrots. Like we see stuff in the grocery store and well, we don't, but the average person sees some produce in the grocery store, and it's almost like I think sometimes there's just like such a disconnect where it's like, yeah, it's like it's carrots, like they're just always there, and they're little babies carrots, and they're in plastic bags, and it's just they kind of come from the grocery store. But when like the miracle that is getting a real bunch of carrots grown in our awesome clay soil down here, like how big of a deal it is,
Yeah.
like you can celebrate that with us, but then also you can sort of be like the chief cheerleader for the community to say like, all right, y'all, like this is a big deal. And we're going to, we're going to like rally together to not just like celebrate that, but to participate in that, and you understand the ebbs and flows of the season, like you talk about, like what's in season, what's not, and understanding, like, hey, like it might be, especially for a new grower, it might be like, hey, like you should probably try to have tomatoes by this time or whatever, like you can be an excellent resource for a new grower like me, and so like, hey man, like stick it out, I've been there, I know, like you're gonna do better. Like I can remember, March was a little slow and I was like, oh god, have I made a mistake, should I have just stayed at my other market, had to start over, and you're like, no, just stick it out, just keep it going. And now, yeah, now we're doing more than double of what we would have been doing this time last year. And yeah, and so having someone in our corner as growers to both like support us, guide us, champion us is extremely valuable. Um, and you probably wouldn't do something like close the market down for the month of October to give
Yeah.
everybody a break, which is
No,
what
if I
happened
did,
last year.
there would be an uproar, not just within the community, but within the farmers market and the other vendors. I mean, there's there's businesses that survive from working the Athens Farmers Market,
Mhm.
not just farms, but like food vendors and arts and craft vendors. And I mean, there's a handful of businesses at the farmers market that their full-time job is the farmers market on Wednesdays and Saturdays.
Yeah.
So yeah, we could never close down for the whole month of October, and I mean, we go year round now. So we take off the last weekend of the year for New Year's, in between Christmas and New Year's, and then we start right back up the first week of January. And one of my goals as the farmers market director since I started was getting as much produce to the winter market to show people that one, there is local produce available in January and February, and you don't have to just go inside to the grocery stores. But two, to give farmers the opportunity to learn what it's like to grow through the winter months because it's completely different. Some people love it 10 times better than growing in the summer because there's no pest pressure, their disease pressure is way down. And some people hate it because you're flipping shade cloth or row
Row
cover on and
cover.
off
Yeah.
all day long, all week long. So I really have enjoyed finding farms that want to come to the winter market. When I started, we had two. We were going to have one last year, then you came on, and we had another farm that came on for half the season in the winter market. And next January, we'll have four full-time produce farms at the farmers market. And I think it's not competition when we're adding more farms, especially to the winter market. I think it just allows the community to not just stop coming to the market in December and know that everyone can still come for January and February, and that we won't be sold out of produce by 9:30 or 10 o'clock for the winter months because there's just not much growing. It shows the farms that there's an opportunity, and it also shows the community that the food's still there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to having more folks. Yeah, because yeah, we would sell out, and now we're bringing more than we were ever bringing the year before, and yeah, we were selling out in the first 2 hours.
Yeah,
And it's as awesome as that felt, it was also, yeah, really upsetting you know, to see people come by, like, really hoping to get a bunch of carrots or really hoping to get anything, and it's like, "Sorry, we don't like, sorry you came to the farmer's market and there's no stuff from a farmer." And it's like, it's
yeah,
just, yeah, there's so many people that would came out, literally freezing. Like, I had, like, a
yeah.
wet towel in my back pocket, like, froze in my pocket because it was still below freezing, and people are out there, like digging through to find that perfect bunch of carrots. And
Mm-hmm.
I was really impressed with just like the customer base and how quickly they were just like, yeah, I don't care if it's January, like we want our veggies.
Yeah, they definitely this winter we definitely saw an increase in foot traffic in the winter months, and I can guarantee it's from the increase in the produce that we had. And I think it'll only continue to grow when people understand and know that we have more produce coming for the winter months, and it just helps the market grow throughout the season because we don't lose customers and don't lose people that maybe from a personal experience, like I know it doesn't. You don't go to the farmers market and overnight buy all of your groceries from the farmers market. You start going to the farmers market to buy coffee,
Hmm.
bagels, biscuits, flowers for your partner, your wife, and then you buy a bag of salad mix and tomatoes. Of course, everyone's going to get tomatoes, and then you slowly grow from buying just salad mix and a tomato for a salad a week to buying kale and trying kale for the first time. And then you start buying squash and cucumbers from the farmer's market instead of at the grocery store. And
Hmm.
then usually, I would say within 6 months to a year, you're buying a decent amount of your produce from the farmer's market and not the grocery store because one, the taste is night and day difference, so much better. You can taste the nutrients, you can taste the love that goes into that style of farming and that produce, but also you aren't spending that much more money to buy food that isn't as nutritious and doesn't come from the community that you're investing yourself into. So like I know it doesn't happen overnight, So being able to have produce year round gives people that maybe came to the market for the first time in November or December that extra couple months to get acquainted, to come to the farmers market and try new things and buy new things. And then maybe by the following summer, they're spending half of their budget on produce at the farmers market. So it's just continuing to invest in the community financially, continuing to invest in the community on a health basis, and just allowing more people to be educated on what it means to give their family local produce, give their family a healthier lifestyle, and also give other people in the community the same opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you end up being the dude who's got like $100 bill in his hand, and he's like, "If I buy 10 pounds of peppers, can you cut me a better deal? A bulk,
Yeah,
like, yeah, that was like, that's what we were doing this week." And it's like, "If I buy 10 pounds of peppers and 8 pounds of eggplant, can you give me an even better deal?" I'm like, "All right, buddy, like let's," but yeah, I
I
mean,
still
like
can't. I
people,
still can't break your $100 bill.
yeah, yeah. Um, and we did break his $100 bill for him, but he also spent like $70. So it's easy to break $100 bill when you're only giving 30 back. But
Yeah,
um,
and people do that on a weekly basis. They spend
yeah,
that amount of money at one farm,
yeah.
and then go to the three other farms next to it and spend, if not the same amount or half of that, on other
Mhm.
things that you might not have.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to kind of bring this plane into land, both with growing experience and then also as a market manager, director, and just having experience at other farmers markets, being a consumer, being an eater, being a shopper, what would be some things for whether a new farmer or just someone maybe they've been selling wholesale and they're thinking maybe we will do this whole farmers market thing or whatever. What would be some like key things for growers to think about and look for in selecting a farmers market to be a part of? Most people will not have the luxury that I had where you sought me out, which still blows my mind, even though we've talked about it. But like what are going to be some good benchmarks for people to look for and some key things that they should keep an eye out for when selecting a market?
I think selecting a market, find something that's at the scale that you can manage yourself as a business, but also, like you said earlier, you're selling yourself with the produce, like you're selling yourself as a farmer. And if you go to a smaller market and you really like put 100% effort into selling yourself to the community and like letting people know how much you love growing in a natural way, how much you love providing food for a local community, your farm and your business is going to shine no matter how big or small the farmers market is. If you get lucky enough to slide into a big farmers market with great farms, if you still bring that same like charisma to sell yourself, be a marketing person, have genuine conversations with people, don't be afraid to talk to somebody a little bit too long because there's someone in line behind
Hmm.
them, give them the knowledge that they're looking for, and be yourself. Your business and your farm's going to shine because people are going to taste the value, taste the love that you put into it, but they're also going to feel it and hear it in your voice and the way that you give them information. So let me look for a market that you can fit in at scale wise for what you can actually grow. Don't be ashamed if you only have 5 bags of salad mix to go to the market, along with other stuff. Take pride in what your farmer's market booth looks like. Dress it up as much as you can with the little amount of produce that you have. If someone takes 2 bunches of carrots and you have one left, don't just let the bunch of carrot lay on the table. Like stand it up, make it look good.
Yeah.
Puff up your bags of lettuce, like consolidate stuff, bring it in together, make it look good from the time that you're there, to the time that you leave, um, and just value having the space in a market, no matter how big or small it is, because you can make an impact as long as you're there to be a genuine, like a part of the community, and let people know that you're there to give them a healthy option and a local option that they can trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you gotta I love what you said about you like stand it up, make the bags look nice and full. Those are, and once again, I think those are some of those things you can learn from books or YouTube videos or podcasts or whatever. Maybe somebody just learned that on a podcast for the first time. But once again, I think that's just another thing that can be learned from, if you bagged if you've bagged 500 bags of salad mix for another farmer for 3 years, like, like I know exactly how to tie it. I know how to get it nice and puffy and stand up nice and tall when it's sitting on that table. Yeah, it's really important. One thing I'm curious about, and no one really seems to talk about it unless it's just like, hey man, you got to go where the money is. It's like, what would you say to like a farmer like myself who's sort of like off the beaten path? Like I think I don't know about Harvest Moon, but I think I'm the furthest driving farmer at the market. I'm driving 50 miles.
Either you or the Hamners. The Hamners probably drive about an hour. They're up in Toccoa, Georgia, so
Oh
they have a
yeah,
decent
yeah,
drive.
yeah. So
But
I'm 55 minutes,
yeah,
and it's 49 miles. So, and I know like the Athens market sort of has like a geographical restriction, 25 counties or whatever. But what would you say is like a realistic like rule of thumb? Like if there is no decent farmers market that's less than 2 hours away from you, or it's not less than an hour away from you. I mean, like, what is it? Just like you drive and you go where the money is, or is it maybe you pivot and change the business model that you have, or is it like, all right, we're gonna find this small little market that's 30 minutes away in the closest town, and we're gonna just do our best to try to make it the best that we can, and just try to really show out, compared to everybody else.
um, I don't think there's really a threshold. I mean, I've listened to hundreds and hundreds of hours um of No Till Farmer or any other grower podcasts like that, or like with Diego's podcast. And I've heard people drive up to 2.5 hours to go to markets because they don't have a market that values local produce.
Mhm.
I think finding the community is just as important as finding the market that is distance wise away. Like I know farms that go to Atlanta that are an hour and a half away. And it's one because of the money, but two because the community's there that values what they're doing. And sure, yeah, you might have to pivot your business plan for the time being, or you might have to find a way to like be with a co-op with a farm that is closer to town, so that you're not having to drive super early on a Saturday to go to a market. Maybe you're driving on a Friday morning and getting back Friday night because you're dropping your produce off with another farm that you've
Yeah.
co-opted with in a bigger county. I think I heard that on a couple episodes of the co-op farming podcast that is in the same family as no-till. But I think finding the community is just as important as finding the market. And also, every situation scenario is going to be different based on your business expenses, life expenses, um, what you can do, how far you can drive. So it's all just gauging out and kind of mapping out where you're at business wise and life wise, and finding the community, like I said, is just as important as finding the market.
Awesome. I would have never thought that like driving 50 miles, almost an hour, every Saturday, I would be like, no, absolutely. I'm never driving that far. Like it's not
Right.
worth it. And it's like, and I think it was like the first market. I'm like, oh no, this is definitely worth it. Like drive 15 extra minutes and, double my sales every single week. And not only just that, but then like, to be able, because it's so much more than just money. Like you said, it's the community, it's the connections, it's just there's so much because it's like now I can go and drive to Athens and do the farmers market and then also hit up restaurants when I leave.
Yeah.
Athens is such an amazing food city that it's like I can now like hit up chefs and say either what I can do, which is what I do now. It's like hit up such and say like, hey man, like let's do our regular weekly order and I'm just gonna save gas for myself, and I'm already going to be in Athens on Saturday. As long as you're cool with getting stuff after the market, like I'll just stop by and drop off your order, and I have it there at the table with me. It's in the shade. It's relatively cool, and then also then I'm gonna be like, but I also have, 5 extra pounds of carrots. You want to throw that onto the gash or add it on or whatever. And so that's another real benefit of being willing to make the drive to a city that is going to suit the need that you have as a business, which is, yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, man, for
uh,
sure.
so one of the last things that I ask usually it's our farmers, but because you have growing experience, I'll throw you into this category too. And I'm going to definitely just throw it on you. So if you have a hard time coming up with an answer, I don't think you will. Then I totally understand. But if you had a Mount Rushmore of farming, who would be on your Mount Rushmore? Not on just like everybody's. This is like Brian Strickland's farming Mount Rushmore. Who's on it?
I think Ashley from Rogers Greens and Roots, that I learned most of the stuff that I know is from like large scale farming from her. Nicholas and Jenny for sure. I think together, just knowing like what they do for the community and knowing the produce and the herbs that we bought for them and the quality. And Carter and probably the like handful of people that I've read all their books from growing up, like in the farming world over the past half a decade, like the Elliott Colemans, the JMs, so the people that have given back to the community
Mhm.
to help new people learn from the ground up because they knew how hard it was when they learned.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the hyper local list. We get a lot of, JM, Jesse Frost, Elliot Coleman.
Sure.
Somebody threw me on the list one time. That was I think they couldn't think of another one, and so it was just like, we'll just you're staring at me, so I'll throw you on there.
It'd be
But
tough
no,
to chisel out the hair for Rushmore with you on there.
yeah, yeah, it's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be a lot more expensive because of that, but I'm worth it. Um, So, do you have anything else that's, kind of on your heart, anything that you're thinking about that we haven't covered that you just like you'd be remiss to not mention before we hop off?
um, I mean, I think like you said, just always try to find valuable and genuine like mentor figure,
Mhm.
or even if you don't consider someone a mentor, just like find a farm that you value. And if you don't get to that point of having the mentorship with them, I think you'll gain the experience to where you can have the conversation to get a mentor in another way. Because sometimes finding a mentor is all about what you're saying to them instead of what you can do for them, what they can do for you. So I think finding someone that can really help you learn the ropes from the beginning, and maybe it not be experience, but it's just like word of mouth knowledge, I think is more important than anything else when it comes to like being a beginning farmer.
Awesome. Brian, first of all, thank you so much for that DM, for reaching out to me. You've not to be hyperbolic, but I mean, really, like you've you've really helped change our lives here. I would have never had the courage to, apply for the market, second year in. We were looking at other smaller markets and so on and so forth. But because of what we've been able to accomplish at the Athens Farmers Market, I'm at the time of this recording, just quit my other job. And so now I'm farming full time. And, none
Yeah.
of this would be possible if it wasn't for, one, the work that you and Esther and the whole team and all of the people over the last 18 years have done to cultivate the Athens Farmers Market, and obviously the amazing shoppers and eaters and the community there in Athens. But then also, yeah, to just believe in us and give us a shot and sort of mentor me through this first half of the growing season has been grateful. So thank you so much.
Yeah, man. I mean, it takes a village, and you're a part of our village, and there's a bigger village of local food in Georgia, and I think we're all a part of that one, and we just got to keep adding on to the village and building it, and we'll keep doing it together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you for sticking around and listening to this episode. Like I said at the beginning, I always enjoy getting to talk with Brian, and it's always fun to talk with a fellow grower and someone who understands the world that we're swimming in here. So big thanks to Brian for all of his mentorship and giving us a chance to make some awesome stuff happen at the Athens Farmers Market. Here's to many more years of selling veggies to these awesome Athens folks. And a big thanks as always to Diego and the whole team over at Modern Grower. None of this would be possible without the hard work that you guys have put in, all of the years that Diego put in making podcasts, helping really create this farm podcast space that I'm just sort of jumping onto and keeping this train going. But yeah, you guys do so much work to make this possible, and I'm forever grateful. And you can also partake in that gratitude by going over to shop.moderngrower.com, and you can help support Modern Grower. Pick up some tools, pick up Soil Shield, the landscape fabric. You can pick up your Jang seeders, the JP1, the JP5, paper pot transplanters, the thing that started it all, as well as your Sumi soakers, your row cover, quick hoops, microgreen seeds, all of the amazing kit over there at Modern Grower. So once again, go to shop.moderngrower.com for all of the small scale agriculture tools that you need. And just a reminder, we say it every week. We believe in value for value. We don't charge you anything for the show. We always want to make it free, open to the public. We want to teach and educate as many people as we possibly can through the content that we put out here on the Rookie Farmer. And part of that means that we forgo big advertising deals or massive revenue income coming in because we're charging for you guys to get this content. And so we're asking that if you find value in this content, please consider kicking some of that value back our way in the form of a donation. You can go to Cash App, Venmo, or PayPal. Look for at Crop Culture Farm. You can send us $1, $5, $10, $1,000. That would be amazing. We would have a super fancy camera setup and everything that we'd have for $1,000. But even the dollars, the $20, every little bit of it helps, creates resource so that we can hopefully upgrade equipment. We can create more time to make more episodes and just to give us that necessary cushion to know that we can dedicate the time to making this podcast. So in advance, thank you so much for all of you who have given over this podcast season. And thank you to all of you who will continue to do it in the future. All right. Another episode in the books, another one for the record books, you could say. And you have been listening to the Rookie Farmer Podcast. I am your host, Alec. And until next time, peace